The silence in the command room aboard the Empire's flagship, Iron Warlord, was deafening. General Vroth stood at the helm, staring out at the vastness of space as his fleet of destroyers, carriers, and dreadnoughts followed in his wake. He could feel the anticipation building, the air thick with certainty. Earth's pathetic attempts at defense were laughable. His fleet was a well-oiled machine, a testament to millennia of intergalactic conquest. "General, we're approaching the coordinates. Earth is within range," said the Empire's communications officer, her voice almost too calm. Vroth's lips curled into a smirk. He turned slowly to face the officer. "Excellent. Deploy the invasion fleet. Begin with orbital bombardment. Make them feel the full weight of our might." The officer nodded without hesitation. Around them, officers and soldiers went to work, preparing for what they assumed would be an easy victory. The Empire had crushed countless civilizations, each one more advanced than Earth, and each had fallen before the superior might of their empire. Back on Earth, the world's leaders scrambled. News of the Empire's fleet had reached Earth's governments mere hours before the first assault. Despite this, panic hadn't set in, yet. As Earth's leaders convened, the weight of the situation was clear, but there was one thing they hadn't anticipated: the determination of their people. At the Pentagon, Captain Alexis Carter stood in front of a large holographic map of Earth. It was eerily quiet in the room, save for the soft hum of technology and the muffled voices of officials outside the door. Carter had been watching the data streaming in, her sharp eyes darting from one readout to another. She knew time was running out. "Do we have a plan?" asked General Ruiz, a burly officer, his voice tinged with frustration. Carter, however, was calm, her face a mask of composure. "The Empire's overconfidence will be their undoing. They think they're facing a primitive world, but we have the advantage in one critical area. They don't understand us. They don't understand humanity." A ripple of doubt ran through the room. How could humanity possibly hope to defeat a fleet that could wipe out entire civilizations with a thought? "General," Carter continued, "we may not have the firepower to match them ship for ship, but we do have the ingenuity to fight back. We've been preparing for this moment our entire existence. We'll hit them where they least expect it." The commanders exchanged glances. What Carter was proposing seemed reckless, fighting an advanced enemy with outmatched technology and resources. But one by one, they all turned their attention back to her. She was right. The humans had always survived against overwhelming odds. And somehow, she knew that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology, but its spirit. "Prepare the fleet," Carter ordered. "We're going to show them why you don't mess with Earth." The first wave of the Empire's assault was swift and brutal. A fleet of 6 massive dreadnoughts and countless destroyers appeared in Earth's orbit, their sleek, metallic forms blotting out the stars. Their weapons, each capable of annihilating entire cities, were primed and ready to rain down destruction. General Vroth stood in the heart of the Iron Warlord's command center, his eyes narrowing as he observed the data streaming in. His fleet's initial bombardment had crippled Earth's satellite defenses and devastated its orbital stations. A ripple of satisfaction ran through him. "The planet will be ours in mere hours," he muttered to himself, utterly convinced of the Empire's inevitable victory. But on Earth, as the first explosions erupted in the sky, the people did not cower. Instead, they united. Captain Alexis Carter stood on the bridge of Earth's largest warship, U.S. Liberty, her eyes sharp as she studied the incoming reports. The attack had begun with the expected destruction of civilian infrastructure, but Carter knew this wasn't the real battle. "They're trying to break us, but we won't bend," she said under her breath, her hand gripping the armrest of her chair. She turned to her first officer, Commander William O'Neill. "Have our ships go dark. No lights. We're going to make them think we're blind and helpless." O'Neill looked at her, confused. "But they'll be able to target us easily if we don't." "We don't need sensors to fight back," Carter interrupted, her voice steely. "We've got one thing they don't: Earth. They're invaders here, And we're in our own backyard. With that, Earth's fleet, a collection of outdated but upgraded military vessels, powered down their external lights and electronic signatures. Without their energy signatures to track, the Empire's fleet would be flying blind. The U.S. Liberty led the charge, weaving through the debris of destroyed satellites and space stations, its hull glowing faintly under the dim light of distant stars. It wasn't fast. Its engines were nowhere near the sophistication of the Empire's, but it was fast enough to use Earth's terrain to its advantage. Humans had learned to fight in the dirt, in the shadows, in places where the enemy's superior technology could be made irrelevant. The Empire's ships fired their blinding lasers and plasma weapons indiscriminately, expecting to tear through human defenses with ease. But when the first beam sliced through the emptiness, where Earth's largest space station had been moments before, there was no target left to hit. The Liberty had already slipped behind a massive asteroid, just one of hundreds in Earth's solar system, where the Empire's sensors couldn't pick it up. The Empire's leaders watched in stunned silence as the humans, who were supposed to be helpless, began to move with surprising precision and agility, striking from the darkness, harassing the Empire's fleet at every turn. "Deploy the interceptors," Vroth barked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "No more games. End this now." But it was too late. The humans had already adapted, and as the first of their ships broke free of the Empire's outer defenses, they fired on one of the Empire's destroyers, the Emperor's Wrath. Its shields flared briefly before collapsing entirely. The crew aboard the Empire's flagship stared in stunned horror as the Wrath exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Humanity's message was clear. The invaders weren't going to be so easily subdued. Carter watched the footage of the explosion, her expression hardening. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We're not running, and we're not giving up." The U.S. Liberty's crew cheered as they rallied around their captain, the first real victory in what was shaping up to be a much longer and bloodier fight than the Empire had anticipated. The Iron Warlord loomed in space like a colossus, its command center a hive of activity. General Vroth paced back and forth, fists clenched at his sides. The Empire's forces had been engaged in a relentless battle for the past 48 hours, and their initial confidence was rapidly turning to frustration. The humans were proving far more resilient than anticipated. "Send more waves of interceptors," Vroth ordered, his voice tight with anger. "Crush them. We must end this quickly, before the resistance spreads." Despite his commands, there was a growing unease among his officers. Reports from the front lines were more troubling by the minute. Earth's forces were using unpredictable tactics, employing guerrilla-style warfare that the Empire was not prepared for. Their ships, while outdated and outgunned, were elusive, darting in and out of asteroid fields, disappearing into the darkness of space, striking without warning, then retreating before the Empire's fleet could retaliate. "The Liberty is leading their charge," one of the Empire's tactical officers reported. "It's acting like a ghost ship, disappearing into the debris fields around Mars, only to pop up and attack again when we least expect it." Vroth's lips curled into a snarl. "I want that ship destroyed." Meanwhile, on Earth's flagship, U.S. Liberty, Captain Alexis Carter stood resolutely at the helm, eyes scanning the holographic displays in front of her. The last 48 hours had been a grueling test of both her tactical genius and the fortitude of her crew. The human fleet had sustained significant damage, but every casualty had been met with a renewed resolve. "Status report," Carter said, her voice calm and steady. Commander O'Neill glanced over at her, his face etched with concern. "We've lost 30% of our fleet. The Empire's weaponry is far more advanced than ours, and their numbers are overwhelming. But we've managed to keep them off balance. The Empire's ships are relying too heavily on their superior firepower. We'll keep exploiting that weakness." Carter nodded. "We need to hit them harder. Keep using the asteroid fields. Let them think they're chasing shadows. If they're focused on hunting us down, they're not focused on the rest of Earth's defenses." With a swift motion, she activated a comm channel to the fleet, All ships execute Plan Theta. Disrupt their formations. Keep them guessing. They're too confident in their superiority. Let's show them that arrogance is their greatest weakness. The human ships, battered and scratched, began to shift tactics again. No longer operating in predictable patterns, they used the dense asteroid belt around Mars as cover, darting in and out of sight. The Empire, with its heavy reliance on advanced tracking technology, struggled to keep up. Suddenly, a massive explosion ripped through the Empire's outer lines. A decoy strategy had worked. A fleet of human ships, disguised with reflective armor to mimic asteroid signatures, had detonated a series of mines embedded in the asteroid belt, catching the Empire's destroyers by surprise. The Emperor's wrath had barely managed to avoid the blast. "Did we get them?" O'Neill asked. "Not yet," Carter said, but her eyes gleamed with determination. "But we've got them right where we want them." The Empire, now suffering from the unexpected ambush, was thrown into disarray. General Vroth growled in frustration, watching as his ships collided with debris, unable to adapt to the guerrilla tactics humans were using. The tables were slowly turning. Humans had just delivered a devastating blow, and the Empire's once invincible fleet was beginning to falter. What had started as a one-sided slaughter had now become a war of attrition, and humanity was proving to be far more than the Empire had bargained for. The battle had raged for weeks, and Earth's forces were showing no signs of backing down. The Empire, once brimming with confidence, was now on edge, struggling to maintain control as the relentless human tactics began to take a toll. General Vroth's frustration mounted with each passing day. His once mighty fleet was being battered, outmaneuvered, and humiliated. But the true turning point came on a dark, quiet night in the war room aboard the Iron Warlord. As Vroth stared at the glowing holographic map of the battlefield, the comms officer's voice pierced the silence. "General Vroth, we have an encrypted transmission. It's from an unknown source, claiming to be an ally." Vroth's brow furrowed. "An ally? From whom?" His voice was skeptical, but the weariness in his tone betrayed his desperation. The officer hesitated before continuing. "They claim to be from the Tivakar, a race of beings we conquered long ago. They wish to offer intelligence and assistance. They say they can help us crush the humans once and for all." Vroth leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "Put them through." The transmission crackled to life, and the figure of a Tivakar representative appeared on the screen. He was a tall, reptilian creature, his eyes glowing with an unsettling yellow hue. His voice was smooth, yet carried an edge of urgency. "General Vroth, we've been watching the humans fight against your fleet. They are more resilient than we ever anticipated. Our people have suffered under the Empire's rule for centuries, but we see an opportunity now to shift the balance of power." Vroth's eyes narrowed. "And what is it you want in return?" he demanded, suspicion flooding his mind. The Tivakar's expression was cold. "Our freedom. We wish to see your empire fall. In return, we offer you valuable information on humanity's defenses, secrets they have kept hidden from you. We will guide your fleet to their weak points." Vroth hesitated, weighing the offer carefully. If these former subjects of the Empire had truly been hiding something from them, it could be the edge he needed to finally crush the humans. But something about this felt wrong. The Tivakar had long been a conquered race, their potential for betrayal ever present. Still, the lure of an easy victory was tempting. "Very well," Vroth said, his voice cold as ice. "But cross me, and I'll destroy you as well." The Tivakar bowed slightly, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Agreed, General Vroth. We have much to offer." Meanwhile, on Earth, Carter and her team were working tirelessly to bolster their defenses. The news of the Empire's new alliance with the Tivakar came to them through intercepted transmissions, and Carter knew this could be a turning point in the war. But instead of panicking, she saw an opportunity to strike back. In secret, she reached out to the very same alien races that the Empire had enslaved, offering them the chance to join humanity in the fight for freedom. The message was simple. If they helped humanity defeat the Empire, they would have a place in the new galaxy, one where they could be free. A few days later, a covert meeting was arranged. Carter stood in a dimly lit room with representatives from several alien factions, the Xalvar, the Feli, and the Nyrics, all long oppressed by the Empire. They had once been scattered and divided, but now they found themselves united by a common goal: to see the Empire fall. "We don't have much time," Carter said, her voice steady and commanding. "But we can beat them. Together." The alien representatives nodded, their faces set in grim determination. They understood the stakes. This was their chance to reclaim their freedom, and they weren't about to let it slip away. The alliance was growing. Slowly, but surely, the various alien races that had been crushed beneath the Empire's boot began to unite under humanity's banner. The Xalvar, a race of once mighty warriors who had been reduced to slaves, pledged their fleets to Earth's cause. The Feli, a technologically advanced species with a deep understanding of stealth technology, provided invaluable intelligence. The Nyrics, a race of telepathic beings whose minds could influence energy fields, brought with them abilities that even the Empire hadn't anticipated. Humanity, once seen as a primitive, isolated species, now stood as the center of a new rebellion. And the Empire, ever overconfident, was too blind to see it coming. Captain Alexis Carter stood in the war room aboard U.S. Liberty, her gaze fixed on the new tactical map. The Empire's fleet, now reinforced by the Tivakar, was moving deeper into human territory. But their overconfidence was beginning to show. The once precise military machine was growing chaotic. They no longer fought with the calculated precision they were known for. They were desperate. "We have a window," Carter said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "Their supply lines are strained. They're starting to make mistakes. We hit them now, while their forces are scattered, and we'll break them." Commander O'Neill, ever the pragmatist, raised an eyebrow. "This is our chance to strike, but we'll need to move quickly. The Empire has a way of regrouping, and their reinforcements are still formidable." "We've got the advantage of surprise," Carter said, a spark of determination in her eyes. "We've already hit their strongest flank. Now we push them further into disarray. The Tivakar may have turned on them, but they're still holding something back. I think they know more about the Empire's weaknesses than they're letting on." O'Neill nodded. "I'll get the fleet in position." As Carter watched him leave, she couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. It had been a long road from the moment the Empire first descended upon Earth, but the tables were turning. Humanity had always faced insurmountable odds, and this time it felt different. The tide of war had shifted, and the invaders were beginning to feel it. Meanwhile, on the Iron Warlord, General Vroth paced furiously in his command center. The latest intelligence was worrying. Their forces had sustained heavier casualties than expected, and morale was at an all-time low. His alliance with the Tivakar, while initially promising, had turned out to be fraught with complications. Though the Tivakar had provided useful intelligence, they had begun acting strangely, pulling back when they should have advanced, offering cryptic warnings, and growing increasingly agitated. "I told you this was a mistake." Vroth snapped at his advisors. "The Tivakar are playing us. They want to see the Empire crumble, not just humanity." One of his officers spoke up hesitantly. "Sir, perhaps we should consider pulling back and regrouping, consolidating our forces." Vroth whipped around, his eyes blazing. "Retreat? Never. We will crush them. If they want to defy the Empire, they'll learn what it means to challenge us. Bring in reinforcements. We're going to make Earth burn." In the vastness of space, as the battle for Earth reached its most critical juncture, the cracks in the Empire were becoming apparent. The rebellion, once a flickering flame, was now a raging fire that threatened to engulf everything. The Empire had underestimated humanity's capacity for resilience, and now they were paying the price. But Carter knew they couldn't afford to let up. The Empire wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. "Let's finish this," she whispered to herself as the Liberty jumped into the void of space, ready for the next stage of the battle. The war had entered its most critical phase. After weeks of skirmishes and hit-and-run tactics, the human and alien alliance had pushed the Empire's forces to the brink. The once feared Imperial fleet was now disorganized, fractured, and vulnerable. Earth's defenders, despite their smaller numbers and outdated technology, had managed to exploit every weakness in the Empire's arrogance. Captain Alexis Carter stood at the center of the war room aboard U.S. Liberty, watching the final plans unfold. Her face was grim, focused. They had reached the point of no return. If this mission failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. "Everyone's in position," Commander O'Neill said, his voice tight with anticipation. "The Tivakar have given us the intel we need to breach their main defenses. We'll hit them hard and fast. Once we take out their command center, their fleet will scatter. They won't know what hit them." Carter nodded. "Good. We go in under the cover of the asteroid belt. Stay on the move, and don't give them a chance to regroup. It's a one-way mission. No turning back." She turned to the rest of her crew, their faces set in grim determination. They all knew what was at stake. The Empire's leadership was already reeling from their previous defeats, and a final decisive blow could destroy their will to fight. But this would require everything they had: courage, precision, and the unwavering belief that they could defeat the seemingly invincible Empire. Across the void, General Vroth stood in the heart of the Iron Warlord's command center, his fists clenched in fury. The last few days had been disastrous for the Empire. His fleet had taken blow after blow, and the Tivakar were becoming increasingly unpredictable. They'd delivered the intel that had allowed the Empire to prepare for the humans' next assault, but now they were pulling away. Vroth's suspicions about their true intentions had been right. They had betrayed him. "We have to end this," Vroth growled, glaring at the holographic map of the battlefield. The human fleet was moving toward them, like a swarm of ants bent on overthrowing a giant. It was time to crush them once and for all. "Deploy the heavy assault battalions," Vroth ordered, "and reinforce the command center. I want all ships to converge on their position. We will make them regret ever challenging the Empire." The officer at his side hesitated, casting a wary glance at the Empire's scattered fleet. "Sir, our forces are thin. If we concentrate too much power in one place, we leave the rest of the fleet exposed." Vroth's eyes narrowed, his patience wearing thin. "Then expose them. They are weak, and we will crush them. Show them the true might of the Empire." Back on Earth's side, the first wave of human and alien ships entered the asteroid field, their engines thrumming with power as they weaved between massive rocks and debris. The Empire's ships had become predictable, relying too heavily on their technology to spot enemy vessels. Humanity's ingenuity, combined with the tactical prowess of their new allies, was their key to survival. "Here we go," Carter murmured as she watched the Empire's fleet grow larger in the distance. "Steady, just one more push." They would strike fast, hit the heart of the Empire's command, and deliver a blow from which it would never recover. But the risk was immense. If they failed to disrupt the command center and cripple the Empire's leadership, they would have no chance to win. With a final deep breath, Carter gave the order: engage. The final battle had begun. Humanity's fleet, bolstered by their alien allies, surged forward through the asteroid belt, their ships moving with precision, weaving between the massive rocks and debris. It was a calculated risk, striking deep into the heart of the Empire's forces. But the humans had learned long ago how to fight under impossible odds. Their strategy was simple: hit hard, hit fast, and leave no room for the Empire to regroup. Captain Alexis Carter stood at the helm of the U.S. Liberty, her eyes locked on the rapidly approaching Empire's command center. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but there was no time for hesitation. The fate of Earth and the galaxy depended on this mission. "We're approaching their command center," Commander O'Neill said, his voice tight with concentration. They're deploying their heavy assault battalions. It's a full-force counterattack. Carter's eyes narrowed. The Empire was desperate, throwing everything it had left into one final massive defense. She wasn't surprised. They'd been cornered, and Vroth was determined to make sure humanity paid the price. Divert all power to shields and weapons, Carter ordered. We break through, or we don't make it back. No turning back now. The ships of the human allied fleet shifted, moving in tight formation as they approached the heart of the Empire's forces. Explosions rang out across the battlefield as the Empire's interceptors swarmed, their plasma cannons lighting up the dark expanse of space. But humanity's ships were too nimble, too unpredictable, darting in and out of asteroid cover with ease. Suddenly, a massive explosion ripped through the U.S. Valiant, one of the ships in their fleet. Debris scattered in all directions, and the communications channel went silent. No, O'Neill shouted, gripping the console. We lost the Valiant. There's too much fire coming in from their heavy battalions. Carter's jaw tightened. She knew there would be casualties, but they couldn't stop now. Keep pushing forward. We can't afford to lose momentum. Back on the Iron Warlord, General Vroth watched with growing rage as his fleet began to falter. The humans and their allies had breached their defenses, and the chaos was spreading. His plan to crush them once and for all was crumbling. He had underestimated the resilience of humanity, and now that mistake was costing him dearly. Deploy all reserve ships. Vroth barked, his voice laced with fury. Regroup around the command center. Hold the line at all costs. His officers scrambled to carry out his orders, but it was clear the Empire's fleet was already on the back foot. The command center, once considered an impenetrable fortress, was now vulnerable. The Tivakers' betrayal was becoming more evident by the second. Their intelligence had been crucial in getting humanity this far, but it had also weakened the Empire's most critical stronghold. Carter's heart raced as the U.S. Liberty drew closer to the Empire's command center. We're almost there, she said through gritted teeth. Prepare for the final assault. Once we hit their main reactor, their command structure will collapse. But as the Liberty neared the core of the Empire's fleet, the unthinkable happened. A massive wave of enemy fire, concentrated from every direction, slammed into their shields, forcing them into a violent spin. The hull groaned, the ship's systems screaming in protest, but the Liberty held steady. We're taking heavy damage, O'Neill called out. Shields are down to 15%. Carter's grip tightened on the command chair. We're not stopping. Full speed ahead, straight to the core. With a final, determined push, U.S. Liberty blasted forward, its weapons unleashing a barrage of fire that tore through the Empire's last line of defense. The command center was in sight. One more strike. In the final moments of the battle, everything seemed to slow. The Empire's fleet was falling apart, their command center exposed. The humans and their alien allies had done it. But victory came at a steep price. Ships were lost, and entire fleets were decimated. But as the final explosions rang out across the battlefield, one thing became clear. The Empire had been shattered. The battle was nearing its end, but the cost had been tremendous. Humanity's forces, battered and bruised, pushed forward through the chaos, their determination unwavering. On the command bridge of the U.S. Liberty, Captain Alexis Carter's eyes remained fixed on the Empire's command center, which was now a flickering silhouette against the voided space. Every ship they had lost, every life sacrificed, had led to this moment. We're almost there, Captain, Commander O'Neill reported, his voice hoarse with the strain of the battle. Just a little farther. Once we hit their reactor, it's over. Carter nodded, her fingers gripping the armrests of her chair. Her heart pounded in her chest as the ship crept closer to the center of the Empire's crumbling defenses. A part of her wanted to breathe easy, to let the tension slide away. But she knew that now wasn't the time for relief. It was time to finish this, once and for all. Bring us in, Carter ordered. Weapons hot. Prepare for final assault. Elsewhere in the battle, the Empire's forces were in complete disarray. Their once pristine formations had shattered, and the few remaining ships were scrambling to regroup, but it was too late. General Vroth's dreams of crushing humanity in a single decisive blow had collapsed. His fleet was decimated, his empire crumbling around him. On the bridge of the Iron Warlord, Vroth stood in front of the shattered display screens, his fists clenched in frustration. His empire, built on fear and domination, was coming to an end, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "General, our remaining forces are in full retreat," one of his officers reported, his voice trembling. "We've lost contact with most of the fleet. The command center is under siege. We've sustained critical damage." Vroth's face twisted in rage. "No, I will not let them win. This isn't over." But deep down, he knew it was. The once mighty empire, invincible in its own eyes, was on the brink of total collapse. The humans had shown him a truth he had long ignored. The strength of an empire was not built on fear alone. It was built on unity, resilience, and the willingness to fight for something greater than oneself. The very thing the Empire had tried to stamp out across the galaxy. Back at the heart of the battle, the U.S. Liberty plunged into the heart of the enemy's forces, weaving through the chaos. A final barrage of fire erupted from their cannons, striking the core of the Empire's command center with devastating precision. The explosion was magnificent, the sheer force of it lighting up the entire battlefield like a star being born. The Iron Warlord shuddered, its massive form rippling with shockwaves from the blast. Vroth's ship was now a crippled husk, and the remaining Imperial forces began to break apart. There was no stopping it now. The Empire had fallen. Carter leaned back in her seat, exhaling the deep breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Victory was theirs. "Captain, the Empire's forces are scattering," O'Neill reported, his voice a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "The fleet is breaking apart. We've done it." Carter stood slowly, her eyes still locked on the burning remnants of the Empire's command center. "No, we've won," she corrected quietly, her voice filled with quiet strength. The last of the Imperial ships turned and fled, their pride shattered beyond repair. The galaxy was no longer the Empire's to rule. As Carter and her crew looked out across the field of devastation, they knew that the war was over. The fight for Earth was won, but the work wasn't finished. The galaxy would be rebuilding for a long time. But this victory was a testament to humanity's resolve and the unwavering belief in their ability to stand against insurmountable odds. The Empire was no more. And humanity, for the first time in centuries, was free.